This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Lots of stuff to get into, as I promised. But let me get something off my chest, please, because I'm traveling the country, obviously getting ready to heat up and cover the NBA playoffs, conference finals, and then the finals. And obviously I'll be all over the country. And so while I'm sitting here in New York on this particular afternoon, reading a very, very interesting article in the papers, let me touch on the NFL for just a second here by saying this, something that's very, very important, okay? I agree with an article that was written in the New York Daily News, okay? I agree with this article that was written about by Pat Leonard today. And the title reads, Dave Gettleman needs to turn Giants' goodwill with Odell Beckham into a big contract before things get ugly. He's basically saying that Odell Beckham Jr. deserves a contract for $90 to $100 million. And I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, he's right. There's no suspense here. I want to get this out of the way before I get into my NBA playoffs. I want to get this off my chest. There is nothing to discuss here. There is nothing, absolutely positively nothing to discuss here. I completely agree with Pat Leonard of the New York Daily News. Odell Beckham Jr. deserves his $90 to $100 million. I saw the video with the girl in Paris with 2 lines of some white powdered substance that folks have surmised as cocaine. I know that wasn't a good look. I know it looked like there was a joint in his hand. I know that didn't look good either. I don't recall Odell Beckham Jr. with any negative drug test. I don't recall him getting arrested. I don't recall him getting in trouble. I recall him getting on people's nerves, including the New York Giants, because he wasn't the ideal citizen, bringing the kind of unwanted attention to them that they tend not to tolerate. I get that. But he's clearly a superstar. He's box office. And considering the fact that he's box office, and considering the fact that you just drafted Saquon Barkley, number 2 overall, essentially giving him a contract with $31 million in guarantees and a $7.8 million average salary. Considering that, and considering other receivers in this game, Antonio Brown, number 1 amongst wide receivers, $17 million annually. The Bucks, Mike Evans, $16.5 million, number 2 amongst wide receivers. The Texans, DeAndre Hopkins. This DeAndre Hopkins, who, by the way, can play, who, by the way, is big time. But because owner Bob McNair foolishly echoes, you can't let the inmates run the asylum, this brother was talking about not showing up to work. Wasn't talking about giving back the money. Wasn't talking about giving them the salary. And as an aside, let me just say this as an aside, because I'm going to touch on Eric Reid and becoming a part of the grievance against NFL owners, along with Colin Kaepernick. I'll touch on that a little bit later on in the show. But let me say this about DeAndre Hopkins, and not even just specifically about him, but anybody in this world that thinks like him. Who the hell told you liking your boss was a part of the requirement? If that had been me as an aside, if I had been Bob McNair and stupidly echoed those comments at a time like that, as wrong as I may have been, if I'm cutting a check for $16.2 million to Texans DeAndre Hopkins, I'd have dared them to walk out of work. I'd have dared them. I'm telling you that right now. I'm paying you $16.2 million, and because you don't like something I said, you're going to walk out of work? A phrase that's echoed 1,000,000 times over, as foolish as it may be? Please. But I digress. If you're paying these guys, along with the Jarvis Landry $15.1 million, you got to pay Odell Beckham Jr. Enough of this nonsense about Odell Beckham Jr., he's immature, I don't like his behavior, blah, blah. Oh, shut up. Give him his money. He's a superstar. He's box office on top of being a superstar. And clearly, if your name ain't Antonio Brown or Julio Jones, I'm not sure anybody deserves to get paid more than Odell Beckham Jr. at the wide receiver spot. I'm not sure anybody deserves it. Period. So I don't want to hear all of this nonsense. I don't want to hear all this chitter-chatter about we don't know or whatever the case may be. Stop lying. When the football season rolls around, when are y'all going to grow up and stop worrying about people's mentality? Or stop worrying about their personal behavior? If they ain't breaking any laws, then damn it, they ain't your headache. Now the head coach is Pat Shermer. That's his headache. The GM is Dave Gettleman. That's his headache. Stop acting like it's you. As long as Oâ Dell Beckham Jr. shows up ready to ball this season, don't get himself in trouble, don't get himself suspended from any games. Everything else is just noise. Give the man his money and stop playing. 888, say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Now on to my NBA. Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell you something right now. If LeBron James gets the kind of help he got last night, damn it, Cleveland might go to the finals. I'm not picking them to. I picked them to beat the Raptors, though. But don't rule out anything, because the level of production that they got from J.R. Smith, from Kyle Korver, from Tristan Thompson, I don't mean to sound like Cat Williams. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening here. But this is finally what I was waiting for. This is exactly. Look, here's the deal. When you sit there and you look at JR, when you look at Kyle Korver combining for 10 3-pointers last night, hitting 5 each. When you look at a Tristan Thompson, 14 points, 12 rebounds. When you look at a Jeff Green coming off the bench to contribute 16 points. When you look at a LeBron James who spent the fourth quarter in overtime shooting 3 of 15 from the field, basically had nothing. Yes, Toronto choked. Yes, they missed their last 11 shots. Yes, they missed 15 of their last 16 shots. Yes, it was a disgraceful offensive performance in regulation in the fourth quarter. I got it. But what if they had played better and LeBron James had played better? See, what this comes down to is this. I said a couple of things yesterday. Before game one, I said, look, if the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to win this series, they don't need LeBron James and just one other player. They need two. Two other guys that's going to be ready to step up. Two other guys that are going to produce for you. And they need to do it from the perimeter. Because if they're missing shots, they're going to have problems. Because LeBron simply can't do it all. Not against this Raptors team. And lo and behold, the JRs of the world, the Kyle Korvers of the world got it done. They made perimeter shots. Jeff Green made a couple of perimeter shots. And Tristan Thompson was a monster last night. You don't usually associate those words with just 14 points and 12 rebounds, but he was so active. He was active on the boards. He was active defensively. He was active in every way imaginable while you paid him the money that you paid him. This is what Tristan Thompson was doing. So I say all of that to y'all to say this. I told you LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers was Toronto's kryptonite. Yes, they have depth. Yes, with Siakam and Valanciunas and all of these other folks, with Pirtle and these guys coming off the bench and Valanciunas starting, they can make some noise. They're rough and they're rugged. They're going to be in every game. Toronto is not a team to be summarily or easily dismissed. But in the end, if you are hitting perimeter shots, thus enabling you to spread the floor and giving LeBron James more room to operate, this man is their kryptonite. There's nothing they can do with him. There's nothing that they can do with him. When you look at the Toronto Raptors, even though they can hit 3-pointers, it's not like they're Boston. Number 2 in the league doing it and number 1 defending against it. That's not Toronto. It's not who they are. And the style of play that they've implemented, and they incorporate into their things, into their scheme of things. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. When you look at them, you got to ask yourself, how are they going to beat this team if the Cleveland Cavaliers are hitting perimeter shots? They'll probably beat the brakes off of Cleveland in game 2. But when you look at them, by and large, they were made Made for Cleveland. Toronto they rank like 18th in the league in 3-point field goal shooting. They rank 11th defending against it. That's not bad, but it ain't great. And so when I look at the Toronto Raptors, this is what I see. And I don't think there's any way around it. 888, say ESPN, it's 888-729-3776. Look, LeBron James is just that dude when it comes to them. They don't have an answer for him. If you get perimeter shooters, listen, unless DeMar DeRozan starts hitting threes himself, unless Kyle Lowry is hitting more threes, they both shot 50% from the field, both put up decent numbers, but they weren't LeBron-type numbers. That's just the way it is. We shall see. Toronto is in a must-win situation. They cannot go down 0-2 in this series. They just can't do it. Speaking of 0-2, the New Orleans Pelicans are now in an 0-2 hole, courtesy of Steph Curry. See, Steph Curry comes off the bench after a 5.5-week absence. He comes off the bench and still leads the team in scoring in the first quarter, hits his very first shot after not shooting for 5.5 weeks, finishes the game with 28 points in like 26 minutes. Let me be very, very clear about how I feel about Steph Curry so everybody understands this. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter I've ever seen. He's the greatest shooter I've ever seen in my life. I have never in my lifetime of breathing on the face of this earth, I have never, ever seen a greater shooter than Steph Curry. His daddy was a really great shooter. Spot up. Ray Allen could jump shoot. I get it. I understand it. I comprehend it. I've never seen a shooter like Steph Curry. He can dribble with his right. He can dribble with his left. He could be in the right corner, the left corner, on the wings of each. It does not matter where he is. It doesn't matter. And Kenny Smith, oh my goodness, when he did this analysis with that new technology that the TNT program has, couldn't say enough about it, where he can actually insert himself or look like he's inserting himself where he's on the court. Let me tell you something right now. That's some beautiful technology. But his analysis last night of Steph Curry was so profound. It was so great to see. Kenny Smith is pointing out how Kevin Durant has the ball. And whether it was Anthony Davis or somebody there defending him. And he's talking about with Kevin Durant on the right wing and being defended, there's usually a defender in the paint behind the Pelicans defender believed to be Anthony Davis. Because you're collapsing in the paint to make sure that if he goes to the hole, you got somebody there to help. Except with Steph Curry, you can't do that. Steph Curry wasn't even in the picture. He had just walked past half court. And you saw where the defense was settled. Because the reason is that Steph Curry walks past half court and he's an instant threat. That's why. He walks past half court and you look at him, you see him and you say, oh man, I really, really hope this brother doesn't shoot this basketball. That's how you living. That's what you're going through. Because that's how great, that is positively, absolutely how great Steph Curry is as a shooter. Plain and simple. 888, say ESPN, it's 888-729-3776. I remember being in the locker room in the nation's capital for the Raptors after their Game 4 loss to the Washington Wizards. And I remember Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan looking at me without a concern in the world. They're like, yeah, they got us tonight. Don't worry about it. We'll handle it. Ain't no big deal. And they pointed to Fred VanVleet because they talk about how they didn't have him. So because they didn't have him, you were going to be compromised with your perimeter game. That's what they talked about. But look what happened. LeBron and the crew come to town. And they have no answer. Because when you look at LeBron, and Cleveland. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, they didn't look like they looked against Washington. They looked worried because you're going up against the king. You're going up against the greatest player in the world, LeBron James. So you got to deal with that reality. And that's where we are at with this team. You got to do more. DeMar DeRozan, you got to do more. Only had 22 points. Kyle Lowry, 18 points. You got to do more. It's LeBron James you're playing against. You got to do more. Whatever that more is, whatever that more entails, it has to be done. I had Cleveland, even though clearly they are not the better team. I had them winning this series. And I stand by it. Say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. A lot of folks are reaching out to me out there, want me to comment about Kanye West. This is a sports show. I'm not getting into that. Other than to saying slavery was a choice may be one of the most egregious things I've ever heard come out of the mouth of a black man. And a grave insult to our ancestors. I'll leave it at that. As tempted as I am not to. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Before I get to the phones, rather, there is a playoff game that is scheduled tonight in Houston, Texas. Game 2, Rockets, Jazz. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to admit to you, I'm just praying this is going to be a series. I looked at the Utah Jazz team that's ill-equipped to deal with James Harden. They can't do it. They don't have any answer for that. They have absolutely, positively no answer for that whatsoever. James Harden is a superstar. James Harden is lethal one-on-one. No matter how good they are defensively, they just don't have the horses to deal with him. They just don't. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. I see Utah maybe getting a game in this series because that home crowd is lethal. No question about that. I see them maybe getting that. Outside of that, nope. Outside of that, no. It is what it is. James Harden and the Houston Rockets are just clearly superior. And when I watched Steph Curry last night put on that show he put on, ladies and gentlemen, it didn't change my mind. I said before the series began, before these playoffs began, that barring Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors would win the NBA championship. And I am not backing up from that prediction one bit. I know there are others who believe it is Houston. I got to see it to believe it. That's where I'm at with it. I got to see it to believe it. I'm not deviating from that. I'm just not doing it. Golden State is the creme de la creme. They are the team to beat. And now that the playoffs have arrived, they're taking these games seriously. Maybe in some respects a little bit too seriously in some people's eyes. By that I mean Charles Barkley. Love my brother. He's a friend. Had no business saying what he said about Draymond Green wanting to punch him in the face. We live in different age, different times. Barkley doesn't care about that. Doesn't do social media. I can respect that. But it's not something he should have said. And Draymond Green, his reaction, I don't blame him. He's like, you talking about punching me in the face. Go do it. Do something. See what happens. Now, in fairness to Charles Barkley, I didn't take Charles Barkley as literally as some idiots might. Charles Barkley wasn't talking about getting off the set and wanting to punch Draymond Green in the face right now. Charles Barkley was sitting up there and talking about, look, he didn't say this, but I'm deducing from what I watched. Charles Barkley was basically talking about, y'all, it's amazing what y'all call tough guys. Because he came up in a different era. You gotta remember, Charles Barkley was in the league when Oakley was in the league, Bill Laimbeer was in the league, and people like that. They ain't gonna be fazed by Draymond Green's height. And Draymond Green is a rough rider. He ain't scared of anything. He's an energizer bunny too. There's a place for all of that. But let's be clear. Let's be honest and clear with each other. Lots of people want to talk and speak against the agitator that is Draymond Green. We live in a different age and we live in a different era. When I think about Draymond Green, I just say to myself, hey, I don't blame him one bit for standing up for himself. We don't need to do that. We don't need to act like, okay, you know what? This is what Barkley meant. Like Barkley meant he'd get off the set and punch him in the face right now. No, that's not what Barkley meant. What Barkley meant was during my day, he wouldn't be the tough guy y'all are labeling him to be. He'd get punched in the face. He'd get slammed to the floor. Something would happen to that brother. And in that respect, I don't know if we can definitively say Charles Barkley was wrong. Because I don't think we can.
I'm a one-trick pony, literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la, aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more. You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
To the phones we go at 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Rich in Manhattan, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, Richard.
Hi, Stephen A. Now, let's say in the NBA Finals, we get the Final Four of Houston, Golden State, Philly, and Cleveland, right?
Yep.
Okay. Me, you, the networks, Adam Silver, everybody would love to see both series going 7, and then the winners of those series going 7. So you got a maximum of 21 games, correct?
Okay.
That's what everyone would love. I have a theory. Why don't we try this for this year? You take those 4 teams and play a fourth game tournament each. In other words, Philly will play Cleveland 4 times, Houston 4 times, Golden State 4 times. Each 2 games at home, 2 games away. The maximum number of games you'll have in that kind of series is 24. So we're approaching the same amount of money the owners will get, the networks will have. So 24 games. Now, the only hitch in it that I have is, let's say Cleveland is out of it before the 24th game. Well, they're obviously not going to play for anything, so you'd have to forfeit that game. Let's say a Cleveland-Houston game and Cleveland is out of it. I don't know how we can do that so that it would be, you'd get the maximum number of games. But
Richard, what's the purpose of this?
Well, you don't have any space in between.
No, but what I'm asking you is why are you coming up with this? I mean, Houston and Golden State would be a compelling series. Philly against Cleveland with Ben Simmons and unbeaten those boys, assuming they get past Boston, that would be a compelling series. What's up with all of this 4 games apiece against each other? Why?
In other words, Stephen A., you wouldn't just have Italian food. You'd have Chinese food, soul food, Mexican food. So you'd get all 4. You'd get all the teams playing.
No, Richard. I'm not buying that. First of all, I like what I like. And if Chinese food is working for me, I'm going to keep eating it. You know, if Italian food is working for me, I'm going to keep eating it. I don't need to switch up. That's just me.
But, Stephen A., in this kind of thing, you wouldn't have any lull in between the...
But it's not... But Richard...
You wouldn't have 6 days.
All right, Richard. Okay, Richard, I hear you. It's not going to happen. You know that. You got another basketball point for the playoffs? No, you don't. I mean, come on, Richard. The playoffs are going on right now. It's very compelling. It's incredibly interesting. It's a hell of a lot better than it was last year. And you're coming up with this? Come on, man. Come on now. Ray in Brooklyn, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Stephen A., is always a pleasure, brother.
Go ahead, my man. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, Stephen A., I'm looking at this. First of all, I thought yesterday's Raptors game, that should have been the must-win for them, not this one. I thought the opportunity that they let go because, I mean, let's be honest, they were up for most of that game, and they were balking, but they just didn't get it done at the end. Again, typical Raptor team, they folded again. And as far as I'm concerned, if I'm a Raptor fan, I'm very pissed off because you let one get away against a team that has experience and that's going to wash you up. If you flinch just one time, they're going to get you done. So as far as I'm concerned, as far as the Raptors are concerned, they're done for me. I'm sorry. I don't see them coming back after that loss. I got to be honest with you, Stephen.
Well, I can tell you this. I expect them to win handily in Game 2. And then Game 3 or 4 is going to be set. I'm not ready to concede anything until I get to Game 3 or 4. Because the series could be tied 2-2 after 4. And then what are we going to be saying? They're back to having home court advantage. So I'm just not willing to say that. But I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. LJ in Houston, you're live with Stephen A. What's up, LJ? Talk to me.
Good afternoon, Stephen A.
Man, speak up, bro. You got millions listening to you. Speak up with some bass in your voice. Sound a little bit excited to hear from me, Barry White. What's up?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm here, man.
All
Can
right,
you hear
go
me
ahead.
now?
Yes, I can.
All
go
right,
ahead.
All right, I'm calling you today, man, to make the point you made about Tristan Thompson making a key defensively in that overtime, considering he scored the last basket off LeBron James' air ball. So they didn't score after that. So he really made a difference in them getting that win. But how much emphasis we got to put on Kevin Love? Because you say he needs two players to show up every night for him. Do you consider Kevin Love has to be one of those players?
I think Kevin Love deserves a break from us. He's not hurt. He's not healthy. You know, he hurt his wrist. He was out for weeks. Then after that, he re-injured his hand and his thumb. He's playing hurt. It's not like Kevin Love is 100% healthy and he's just out there. And you know he's got to be out there because when he was injured earlier in this year and he went home, you had guys like Isaiah Thomas and D. Wade calling him out on it. So he's got to play through this stuff. He's got to show up no matter what. But he's not 100%. So I just think that we need to cut him a break just a little bit in that regard. Because guess what? Your shooting hand matters.
Okay, well, let's just say he can make it up rebounding since he had 13 last night.
He had 13.
So they can sacrifice the point.
And he hit a big-time shot in the fourth quarter, a big-time three. Let's not forget that.
Okay, well, I just wanted to get your opinion because you say you need two players. So I believe Korver's going to be there. But if Kevin Love can show up a little bit, no one's going to beat this team the way they lock down defensively towards the end of games. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that. That's all I have for you, Stephen.
Well, I got a lot of love for Kevin Love. I think he can play. I think he can hit big shots. He's not somebody like Draymond Green might be his kryptonite, and I get that part. But for the most part, he can shoot. He'll hit open shots if you give him the opportunity to shoot them. It's just that simple. That's how I look at him. That really, really is. 888, say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. In a little bit, I'm going to get into this subject. I'm going to get into it now, but I'll take a call or two on this next subject because I don't know if y'all heard, but Eric Reid is joining the grievance case that Colin Kaepernick filed against the owners, basically accusing them of colluding in order to keep him out of the league. I said this. I brought it up on First Take. I'm going to say it again. Look, we got problems in this country. There's no doubt. Got problems that the minority community brings to our attention. There's no doubt. Colin Kaepernick's original protest was never against the National Football League. So if you're not having a gripe with the National Football League and the issue, taking a knee and bringing attention to racial injustice and police brutality and all of this stuff, if all of that stuff is what Colin Kaepernick was kneeling for, which he was, and it has been successfully hijacked by the President of the United States, who turned it into an issue of patriotism. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth doesn't matter. The perception does. And the perception to millions of patrons is that you're not patriotic if you take a knee as an NFL player or a professional athlete. As a result, NBA players haven't taken a knee. They've just locked arms. NFL players have basically curled back their thoughts on taking a knee. To some degree, even Eric Reid. And supposedly to Colin Kaepernick before he categorically denied this case. Look, what I'm saying in all of this is that if you're Eric Reid and you can't get a job, you shouldn't be surprised. You kind of knew this was the fallout of it. Owners are not going to let you compromise their bottom line. And if they think that's what you're doing, they're going to keep you out. And oh, by the way, they don't have to collude with one another to do it. Because who the hell don't know an owner is not going to react the way you're accusing them of reacting. Sure, if you find emails and examples of them directly communicating with another are fine. I'm saying they don't have to. Because they're owners. They're businessmen whose bottom line is the bottom line. And anything that compromises it, they're going to get rid of it. This is not rocket science. This is not hard to comprehend. And people just need to know that. They just do. 888, say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. More on the NBA playoffs. More on Oâ Dell Beckham Jr. and that contract that he's seeking. And whether or not it's time to give it to him. More on Eric Reid joining Colin Kaepernick in that grievance being filed against league owners. Don't touch that dial. Stick around. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! Got to talk about my Yankees again at some point in time today, along with those Dodgers. Season's getting away from them. Manny Machado, you might need him. You might need him. Back to the phones we go right here at 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. My man Carlton in Tampa. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, buddy? Good afternoon.
How you doing today, Stephen A?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little under the weather, but I'm okay. What's going on, buddy?
I got a quick comment about your Brady-Belichick dynamic on First Take this morning, but then I want to primarily talk about Eric Reid and what I think's going on there. First off, I got a prediction for Max Kellerman, and that is that the moment that Tom Brady either retires or gets traded, it's Bill Belichick that's going to fall off a cliff. He's 18-19 as the head coach of the New England Patriots without Tom Brady as his starting quarterback. He's got a losing record, and he's 9 games under 500 in the NFL as a head coach without Tom Brady as his starting quarterback. So when Max and Molly, and even you to a lesser extent, you gave more credit to Belichick than Brady today on your show for the Patriots' success, when you guys finally get your wake-up call, you're going to realize that Bill Belichick is nothing without Tom Brady. Tom Brady has carried his behind. Okay. But let's get on to Eric Reid, shall we?
Go ahead.
Because this is about the entire national dynamic. This pertains to what's happening with how Trump got elected. It pertains to the Kanye West controversy the last few days. Eric Reid is a victim of these out-of-control social justice warriors who, if you do not believe exactly what they believe, exactly to the letter, you are ostracized. You are persona non gratis, and other people's fear of people like that. And I'll tell you how.
That's definitely a problem in our society. I can't deny that. Go ahead. Keep going.
Colin Kaepernick decided before he even found out whether Bisciotti was going to hire him on the Ravens to demonize Bisciotti, equating him to, the character in Django, the evil slave owner in Django, before Bisciotti even made a decision on hiring him. And he threw Ray Lewis, who was working on his behalf, under the bus and equated him to an Uncle Tom character in Django, just because it didn't happen as quickly as Colin Kaepernick wanted it to happen. Need I remind you that Eric Reid, when Malcolm Jenkins and Bolden, as part of that Players Coalition, were trying to negotiate that $89 million settlement to promote causes in the African community and try to lift up that community, when he didn't go exactly the way he wanted it to, he effectively called Jenkins a sellout. And he effectively also said he doubted the owner's intent on setting up that fund and everything. So again, when it doesn't go exactly the way he wants, well, then people are racist, or they're sellouts, or they're whatever. And so now, even before he knows whether he's being hired, it's only been 2 months that he's been a free agent, even before he knows it, well, the owners must be colluding. People like that will never get what they want because, again, they're not willing to negotiate anything. They're not willing to be reasonable. If you don't do exactly what they want, when they want, you're a racist or you're a sellout or you're whatever. And no owner, no NFL owner is going to say, yeah, let me give that guy a chance. And let's say he just gets cut in the future because he doesn't perform. Well, then what? I'm a racist?
Well, here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line, Carlton, because we almost got to get ready to go in a minute or so. Here's the bottom line. At the end of the day, in my opinion, Colin Kaepernick was never protesting against the NFL, which everybody knows. He was protesting a social and a societal issue that needs to be addressed, and no black person would deny that. The NFL owner has every right, in my mind, to say, you are not protesting against us. So why should we sit idly by and allow you to affect our bottom line? Sure, there were no rules mandating that you stand for the national anthem and not kneel. But once the issue was hijacked Essentially, people in this country believe what they want to believe, and they're affecting our bottom line. And we have to pay attention to that and act accordingly. If you're in business together to make money through the game of football, everybody's culpable. So I don't have a problem. I understand how guys are going to end up if they won't alter their position. I understand how they can end up without a job. Carlton, you got 20 seconds.
It wasn't always a bottom line. Again, he turned home field advantage into a disadvantage. His whole home crowd was booing him every time he went on the field. Plus, he was throwing bombs everywhere. He alienated the Cuban community. He alienated the whole Ravens organization. He's out of control. He was out of control. That's why he doesn't have a job, Steve.
I got you, Carlton. I appreciate the call, man. I appreciate your insight as always. You know that. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Hour number 2 up next. Sam Presti has an announcement to make. He made it. I'll tell you what that is. Plus more. Hour number 2 up next.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Welcome to hour number 2. The Stephen A. Smith Show here with you on ESPN Radio, 250-plus markets across the United States of America, plus Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. We'll continue talking about the NBA playoffs as the show progresses for the next hour or so. I mentioned the New York Yankees because I love the fact that despite Verlander striking out 14 and being his regular dominant self, I love the fact that the New York Yankees, led by Gary Sanchez, found a way to win this game, which they did last night, beating Houston 4-0. I love that. Houston just scares the living hell out of me because they're the reigning defending World Series champions who are still pretty damn good. And I just know that they're a team to be worried about. I'm a diehard Yankee fan. I ain't apologizing for it to anybody. It's what I feel like. Would be nice to see the Dodgers make some noise, though. You know, they've been sticking up the joint a little bit, and the bottom line is, even with Kershaw on the hill, they're finding ways to lose games. This is a problem. It's a problem they had better overcome. We all know this. I just don't know if they can. See, the bottom line is, you know what? Your best opportunity was last year. You got into Game 7, and damn it, you had to put Yu Darvish on the hill. Yu Darvish. What did you expect? But right now, the Dodgers are 12-16, 8 games out of first place already. Losers of 3 straight. It's not good. Not good. And with Corey Seager being out, you need to get Manny Machado. I agree with John Harper, the New York Daily News. You need to get Manny Machado. That's what you do. You need to get him. Find a way. Figure out a way. And by the way, before I move on back to basketball or what have you, let me say this. This cat, Trevor Bauer, for the Cleveland Indians, I think he crossed the line a little bit here. The question was asked in an article, could Astros pitchers be doctoring baseballs with foreign substances to improve their spin rates? Trevor Bauer of the Cleveland Indians essentially insinuated as much on Twitter Tuesday, getting into a social media war with Houston players as a result. This is what Bauer said. If only there was just a really quick way to increase spin rate. Like, what if you could trade for a player knowing that you could bump his spin rate a couple hundred RPMs overnight? Imagine the steals you could get on the trade market if only that existed. Apparently Justin Verlander, Jared Cole, Charlie Morton have all resurrected their careers in Houston. All 3 starters rank in the top 10 in MLB and ERA. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that Verlander had fell off significantly. Verlander's a stud as far as I'm concerned. Any fall off I've seen from him had to be from his disinterest in playing with Detroit when he was with the Tigers. Verlander's always been a stud in my mind. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But I guess, you know, the Houston Astros thought it was Bush League or whatever. Stay tuned. Wait until Cleveland plays Houston sometime. I think they play each other next week or something. Wait until that happens. That's going to be something to keep your eyes on. I can see a brawl right now. I can see it right now. You're accusing cats of cheating. They ain't going to go for that. You know how Major League Baseball is. They pride themselves in trying to handle their own rules their way. So it's going to be real interesting to see what happens. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. That's one item I wanted to touch on. I already touched on the Eric Reid item. Colin Kaepernick touched on that item. And I want to get back to it by saying this. Look, ladies and gentlemen, it's a bigger picture here. It's about the bottom line. Can we stop acting like we don't know? It infuriates me. I don't give a damn what job you are. You don't run the show when you've got your hand extended for a check from somebody else. You're going to capitulate to something. You're going to capitulate to the wishes of someone. It is inevitable. I work for ESPN, Walt Disney. It's Mickey Mouse. It's a happy place. Do you really, really think that I get to do whatever I want to do or say whatever I want to say all the time? No, I do not. I understand there are bosses. I understand that if you do things to compromise the bottom line of Walt Disney, you're going to be up out of here. Doesn't mean you can't make mistakes, because God knows I have. Doesn't mean that you can't err in judgment, because God knows I have. But when you are purposefully defiant, bordering on insubordination. Ladies and gentlemen, you ain't helping the youth of America by teaching them that that's the way to go. What do you think's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? You're going to lose jobs. Money's not the be-all and end-all. Then it's not about selling your soul. But it is about understanding that when you got your hand out for other people's money, you don't get to do whatever you want to do when you want to do it, particularly when it compromises their bottom line. The NFL has told everybody, we believe the protests cost us dollars. We believe the protests hurt us tremendously. We believe it's endangered our league. You saw that article leaked to the New York Times about the meeting that the owners had with the Players Coalition before surrendering $89 million. They were petrified about the damage being done to the league. Period. And when anybody, and I do mean anybody, acts like they're oblivious to such a thing, well, you ain't interested in working. You're just not. I'm not going to sit up there and compromise my manhood and all of this other stuff. No, I'm going to be me. I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to be a man. But I'll be damned if I act like I don't work for somebody. You do. And when you want people to patronize your product and patronize your brand, and you do things to compromise that, that's just stupid. Particularly when it's not necessary. Now, if it's a principled position that you're coming from and you're informed or whatever the case may be, hell, you can't be loved by everybody. But when you're just flagrantly ignorant, that's a different problem. Speaking of flagrantly ignorant, I promise I wasn't going to get into Kanye West too much, and I'm not. I'm just going to reiterate. I know it's not sports, but damn it, I'm going to bring this up anyway. It's not insubordination because I ain't going to spend an hour or 2 hours on it. What I will say is this. As a black person, knowing our history, for somebody as talented and as brilliant as that, as he is, to say that slavery was a choice is one of the most ignorant, irresponsible, and painful statements I've ever heard come out of anyone's mouth of any ethnicity about black people. Ancestors weren't murdered, enslaved, raped, maimed, and held in bondage by choice. It's an insult to them, their memory, and their sacrifices for such words to come out of their mouth. And Kanye should be ashamed of himself. And I want to applaud that young brother for TMZ, who so eloquently, so intelligently, so brilliantly jumped all up in his you-know-what. I'll leave it at that. 888, say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. One of the other things I want to get into, Sam Presti, general manager for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were eliminated in the first round yet again. Sam Presti did take the liberty to confirm that Billy Donovan, the head coach for the Oklahoma City Thunder, would be back for next season. Sam Presti said 48 wins, one of 3 or 4 teams in the top 10 offensively and defensively, 7th best net rating in the league, 9th best record. That's his justification. He also said the opportunity to potentially have Westbrook, Paul George, and Steven Adams, all 3 of those guys in the prime of their careers, is extremely exciting for us. Notice he didn't mention Carmelo Anthony, and it wasn't just because of the prime of his careers. Let me tell you something right now. Carmelo Anthony, love the brother. I don't understand what happened to him. Just looked like he wasn't even there in the postseason. Looked like he wasn't even there. So that was a problem. But I'm going to also tell you this. Although I'm not too keen on Billy Donovan coming back, I like him a lot. He's a 2-time national champion at Florida. I'm not questioning his basketball knowledge, but the ability to coach Russell Westbrook needs to be the number one criteria for that job. And I'm not calling out Russell Westbrook in any kind of negative fashion. He averaged a triple-double for the second consecutive year. A week ago, we were raving about how he came back from a 25-point deficit in the same damn quarter. Erased the 25-point deficit in the third quarter. Had the deficit with 8:35 left in the third quarter. By the time 32 seconds left in the third quarter, they had tied the game. Phenomenal. But here's the deal. And at some point in time, listen, they hear me in Oklahoma City. Let me tell you something. I respect the hell out of Sam Presti. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not questioning his credentials as a general manager. But at some point in time, if we're going to look at Russell Westbrook and we're going to say you had Kevin Durant and you had Serge Ibaka and you had James Harden and you had Reggie Jackson, and then you still had Kevin Durant after those guys left and Serge Ibaka, and then after those 2 left, you ended up having Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. If we're going to ask the question, Russell Westbrook still hasn't gotten it done. Why? How come we not asking the same question to Sam Presti? You are the GM, aren't you? You know the mercurial talent that is Russell Westbrook, don't you? Didn't you know that James Harden was worth an additional $4 million total to keep? How come you couldn't convince Clay Bennett, the owner, to keep him? Kevin Durant walked away from a team you built. That's what he did. So we got all of this going on. Let's understand what's going on here. We got all of this happening. All of it. And we keep talking about the players and we don't talk about the GM that assembled them and lost them. You didn't lose it for nothing. You traded them. And I understand that. And again, I have tremendous respect for Sam Presti. I'm simply saying, though, we don't get to talk about the players and not talk about the GM. You got rid of Scott Brooks. Why? You brought Billy Donovan on. Why him? You're keeping him. Why not the change? Why no change? Why? Why? Inquiring minds want to know. These are all interesting questions. How many people, it's a fair question in my estimation. If Sam Presti was on with me, I would ask him myself. And it's not out of disrespect, because I do respect him. And I'm not advocating that he should lose his job. I swear I'm not. But I just get tired of players getting these questions. Now, in fairness to him, at least he had a roster. which is more than we could say about New York for years. Magic Johnson's assembling a roster in L.A. He's got to get a start. That's what he does. He's got to do it. You got LeBron and Paul George this summer. You got Klay Thompson and Jimmy Butler and Kyrie Irving next summer. You got to get a star in L.A. You got to get a star. You got to. That's Magic Johnson's responsibility. Plain and simple. He's got to find a way to do it. No doubt. We got it. So all of those things count. And all of those things matter. It's all true. But if we're going to look at GMs in other cities, what about Sam Presti? I'm going to repeat. Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, Reggie Jackson, James Harden, and then Carmelo Anthony and Paul George. Since Kevin Durant left, you haven't gotten out of the first round. When does Sam Presti get looked at? It's just a question. 888, say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. See, these are the kind of things that we got to get into. Because when I'm looking at certain teams, I'm looking at Golden State last night with Steph Curry coming off the bench and balling the way that he balled, the way that they play together. I'm looking at the utility man that is a Draymond Green. I'm looking at a Klay Thompson that was drafted like 11th. I'm looking at some of the ancillary parts that they have available to them, and I'm saying that's a team. I'm looking at Utah. They're not good enough, particularly against Houston, but they're a team. I'm looking at Houston, led by James Harden, with Chris Paul. I'm looking at D'Antoni and his coaching and pace of play being so paramount to him. Pushing that ball up the floor, making it happen. I'm looking at a team that's box office, that's selling out and winning basketball games all at the same time. So much so you got an owner like Fertitta for the Houston Rockets that don't give a damn whether he gets LeBron James or not. Because he loves the team that he's looking at. That's what I'm saying. These are the kind of things you got to pay attention to. These are the kind of things that matter. I'm looking at Boston. Ladies and gentlemen, they're in the conference semifinals up 1-0. They did not have Jaylen Brown, and they had already lost Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward for the year. Do you have any idea how good Boston is going to be next year without moving an inch? They don't have to make a deal. They don't have to acquire anybody. They don't have to do anything. I'm looking at the Philadelphia 76ers, and the only negative is Markelle Fultz. Because he missed about 68 games. He came back, looked big time, and now he's riding the bench come postseason. He was the number 1 overall pick. If it wasn't for the distraction that was Lonzo Ball, courtesy of his father LeVar Ball, we'd have been talking about Markelle Fultz more. We got to pay attention to these things. We got to look at these things and call them like we see them. At some point in time, I could lose on purpose. I could lose out on that many players. I could come up with an abundance of things to compromise one's success. But when I look at executives, to me, it's your ability to go out there and recruit and get guys to want to be where you are. Sure, trading is one option. Recruiting and free agency is another. It's a lot of different things. But I got to look at it and see who's doing what. When I look at Russell Westbrook, I see a superstar talent that has to be reeled in and honed in. Why hasn't that been done after all of this time? And what does Sam Presti have to do with that? I'm just wondering. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. By the way, gentlemen, it's one of my favorite times of the year. The 2018 NFL schedule has been released for your team. The time is now to jump on tickets. Vivid Seats has you covered. The official ticket partner of ESPN. Download the free Vivid Seats app today to get your 2018 NFL tickets. Plus, get the feeling of being rewarded with gold status at Shell with the Fuel Rewards program. Download the Fuel Rewards app, join and start saving 5 cents a gallon today. Those are just a few of the things that we need to get into. Sure, we could talk about Oâ Dell Beckham Jr. needing a contract extension. Sure, we could talk about some of these overpriced receivers and running backs. Sure, we could sit up there and talk about Eric Reid with Colin Kaepernick and whether or not you'd give Colin Kaepernick a job or you'd give Eric Reid a job. Or do you think the owners are completely justified in ostracizing them? And oh, by the way, do you think there's collusion going on? Or do you think it's even necessary, considering the fact that they think alike and it's clearly obvious they believe collectively that this man is costing them money? Meaning Colin Kaepernick. How do you feel about Eric Reid joining them? Do you think it was foolish? I don't. Unless he wants to make money. And of course, there's always the NBA playoffs to think about. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Again, we're talking about a lot of things here. We're talking about the NBA playoffs because you got Houston playing Utah tonight. I give Utah no chance. A game at the best, a game at most. I think they're just tailor-made for Houston. LeBron won last night. Is Toronto in a world of trouble? Philadelphia's got a must game coming up, in my opinion. They can't lose game 2 to Boston. Golden State's got Steph Curry back. So it's time to end the discussion about what Houston's going to do against Golden State when the chances are nothing. All that and more is worth thinking about and worth talking about in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Next. You're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. Whee-oh! You melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I mean, damn. All right, this kind of threw me off a little bit here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reading a quote from Sandy Alderson, the general manager for the New York Mets. I'm going to have to talk to my man Don Juan LaGreca in New York about this a little bit later. I mean, at some point in time this week. Matt Harvey. Remember him? The big time stud who was supposed to be the second coming of Tom Seaver, who actually showed up in a couple of big games for the Mets in the postseason in his career. He was suspended for 3 games by the Mets for not showing up to a game last May. Remember that? Well, he was spotted spending a late night out at a Beverly Hills club during the team's recent road trip to the West Coast. According to a published report, asked directly if he was upset by the report, Sandy Alderson responded, "Usually I get upset if a report is unexpected." So I guess the short answer is no. In other words, we're not surprised. This is Matt Harvey. Matt Harvey, who's 0-2 on the year with a 5.76 ERA, having only pitched 25 innings. I mean, boy, talk about how his career has plummeted. I mean, he's hurt himself big time marketability wise. I mean, there's no other way around this. No other way. No other way. By the way, if you listen to recent articles on back to the basketball front, the leading candidates for the Knicks job ain't Mark Jackson. It's David Blatt, David Fizdale, Jerry Stackhouse. I'm going to bite my tongue for now. I'm going to bite my tongue. Back to the phones we go at 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Andy in Ohio, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, man.
Go ahead,
Can
brother.
you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Go ahead.
All right, thanks for taking my call. Best show on the radio right now. Just wanted to chime in about your Steph Curry comments. Definitely the greatest shooter of all time. He's transcended the game. I don't care what anybody says. I just want to get your thoughts on one of my favorite all-time shooters, Drazen Petrovic. And last but not least, if Mark Jackson doesn't get the Knicks job, the Knicks are probably done.
What was your first question about with Steph Curry?
I wanted you to chime in about Drazen Petrovic. What's your thoughts on him being ranked with the greatest shooters of all time?
Well, Petrovic can shoot. No doubt about it. God rest his soul. Definitely he could shoot the basketball, but he had no ball handling skills. He can handle the ball like this. I call Steph Curry the best shooter in the world, so not just because his shots go in from long range, but because it doesn't matter under which condition he's doing it. He's on his left-hand side. He's on his right-hand side. He's in the corner. He's in the wings at the top of the key. He's 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet. It doesn't matter. Set up, spotted up, or dribbling the basketball. It doesn't matter. Pushing the ball up the floor for fast breaks or standing still. It doesn't matter. No matter the conditions. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter in NBA history. He is the greatest pure shooter in NBA history, without question. Without question. I challenge anybody to refute what I just said. I have never in my life seen a greater shooter than Steph Curry. Ever. 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 And I sincerely mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I'm talking about, it ain't just the superstar shooters like, the Ricky Pierces and the Dale Ellises and the Ray Allens and the Larry Birds and all of those guys. How about Mark Price, who started at Georgia Tech, who played for years with the Cavs but kept running into Jordan, who's a damn shooting instructor in the NBA for crying out loud. I ain't never seen anything like Steph Curry. His daddy, Del Curry, was a great shooter. I ain't never seen nothing like Steph Curry. This brother's on another level, man. When it comes to shooting the basketball, he is the greatest I have ever seen. The absolute greatest. Appreciate the call. Go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought. Oh, Andy's gone. My apologies. Yuri in Long Island. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I got a report today about the Knicks and Mark Jackson possibly getting the backing from Kevin Durant's business partner. I just wanted to know what's your update.
Stop right there. Why in the hell would it matter that Kevin Durant's business partner endorses Mark Jackson?
I just wanted to know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Not unless Kevin Durant is talking about coming to New York. And you know how that works out. There's always somebody, you have conversations, you're ingratiating yourself with a rep or a player or whatever the case may be. Kevin Durant ain't trying to come play for James Dolan.
That's a definite fact.
He ain't trying to do that. He ain't trying to do that. Kevin Durant gonna stay in Golden State, win titles, or he could go someplace else. Probably go play with Magic Johnson in L.A. before he came there. That's what I believe, and I don't believe that's gonna happen. But we shall see. Appreciate the call. Tom in Pittsburgh, talk to me.
How you doing, Stephen A?
I'm good.
Big fan, first time caller.
Appreciate it. Go ahead, buddy.
Hey, I've been waiting to talk to you about this since last night. I'm watching the Cavs game, and what I don't get is, and I see this in the NBA, I see it in college, I see it everywhere. You're in somebody else's home floor. You're down the whole game. You're in the bonus. 15 seconds left on the shot clock. It's 102-101. Why is LeBron not going to the hoop and pulling up from 25 feet?
He had no legs last night. I wanted him to do that as well. I can't say, and listen, that fall away that he made a couple of minutes earlier on the right wing, I was ticked off he even took that shot. I'm like, go to the rack. You're LeBron. But he was tired. He didn't have those legs. He admitted he was tired after Game 7 on Sunday, and he still went out there and registered the triple-double. We can't knock that, Tom.
I don't know. I'm not knocking it. I just see it in every college game. I mean, you're trying to get the momentum, and these guys are always pulling up for that three to take the lead instead of busting it down in the block.
Well, that's true because when the three goes in, it's much more riveting. That's what it is, and that's what they're going for. But I appreciate the call, man. Thank you. Let's go to Judy in New York. You're live with Stephen A. Hello, Judy. How are you?
Hey, Stephen A. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I love your show, and I just wanted to tell you that I remember back in the day when Charles Barkley and Kevin McHale used to mix it up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, and one day in this particular game in the 76ers, and he couldn't take it anymore with McHale always elbowing him or needling him. And he laid him out on the linoleum in Boston Garden. And he said, I'll take the fine. He couldn't take it anymore. Now, Charles Barkley's old school. So we understand that when he says something like, he needs to be punched in the mouth, he doesn't mean he's actually going to punch him in the mouth. But Draymond Green doesn't have any point of reference, I suppose. And Charles Barkley's not going to change. So how does that translate in today?
Well, first of all, let me say this. Thank God TNT isn't overreacting because you let Charles be Charles. Charles Barkley did not mean I'm going to punch Draymond in the face or I'd punch him in the face today. No, Charles Barkley is talking about if he were playing and he was on the court with that, what he would do. He's not talking about what he would do right now as a 50-plus-year-old man who's been retired from the game of basketball for over 15 years. That's not what he's saying, number one. Number two, when you grow up in an era where you got the Maurice Lucases of the world, the Darryl Dawkins of the world, God rest their souls, to the Charles Oakleys of the world and others, the Xavier McDaniels, the Ken Bannisters of the world, the Anthony Masons of the world, God rest his soul, Bill Lambiers of the world, Rick Mahorns of the world, people like that. You look at a guy like Draymond and their mentality is, y'all call this guy a tough guy because Draymond Green is relatively undersized compared to those other guys. However, having said all that, Draymond Green is no punk. Draymond Green ain't scared of anybody. And Draymond Green ain't want to be backing down from people either. That's not who he is. He ain't made from that kind of cloth. So let's be clear. He's not a punk. And he's not somebody that would run from that challenge. But in the end, let's not interpret it like Charles Barkley was talking about hitting him now. Charles Barkley is basically saying this guy talks a lot of smack. He plays rough in today's day and age. The game is so soft, so filtered, he could get away with it. But in my day, that never, ever would have happened. That's what basically Charles Barkley is trying to say, and that's what everybody should peel from it. I don't think he meant it as to something that's present day at all. In fact, I'm pretty damn sure he didn't mean it that way.
I see. Okay, great. Well, thanks for clearing that up. I just want to say one more thing.
Real quick,
I love you as Brickett. I love you as Brick, and you need more time on air.
Well, I appreciate that. General Hospital has called me to come back on, as Brick, but I could not make it during the NBA Finals. So I have to wait until after the finals is over, and then I will be back on. The executive producer was kind enough to call me and tell me that himself because obviously Maurice Bernard, who plays Sonny Corinthos, they wanted me on, and I am going back on. Brick will visit Port Charles again, I promise.
Well, I just want to say that Carly's having trouble with Sonny, so you might have an in.
Well, no, I don't want any, and I don't want to swirl like that. Plus, my loyalty, as much as I love me some Carly, my loyalty lies with Sonny Corinthos. Never forget that. My loyalty lies with Sonny Corinthos.
Thanks for taking my call.
I work at the pleasure of the mobster, Sonny Corinthos. More of your calls to close out the show in a minute with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! Back to the phones we go at 888-SAY-ESPN. Let's go to Mike in Pennsylvania. You're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Stephen A. Thanks for taking my call. It's always an honor, buddy.
Thank you.
I want to touch real quick on the Kaepernick thing. First of all, even though, your voice, you have the ability to reach millions, it is not your responsibility. It's not your job to educate and teach our youth. That is the job of the parents, the teachers, and the elderly in our communities to teach them that. Your responsibility is to you and your family.
That's true, but I'm also one of the elders in the community. I'm 50 years old, and you got a lot of teenagers and 20-year-olds that are looking for guidance beyond people just in their homes or whatever. And it's not necessarily an obligation per se, but if you got any kind of heart and you got any kind of soul and you care about the well-being of other human beings, particularly our community as well, then you're going to have the heart to do that. It's not so much that it is a responsibility, it's that you feel a responsibility because you care about your fellow man and fellow woman.
And I agree with that, 100%. But where the issue lies is, that being said, if you are working for a company that you think their moral compass lies in the opposite direction of yours,
right,
you also have the right and I think social responsibility to say, I will not work for you.
Right.
And in the Kaepernick's case, that would make a bigger statement than what he's doing now.
Yeah, than trying to work for them, but trying to get them to change their ways. I mean, to me, once again, Mike, and I'm not going to belabor this, all I'm trying to say is his protests were never against the NFL. So why is the NFL not within their right to say, we don't want this problem? We're not the ones that you have an issue with. So why should we suffer? I don't have a problem with that, Mike.
Well, that's my point about saying that it's his response. He has to look out for himself. And if he truly wanted to play in the NFL, what he needs to do is stop talking about why he is not in the NFL and tell them why he should be in the NFL.
Maybe so. Him and Eric Reid, for that matter. Mike, I got to run. I appreciate the call, man, because we run out of time. Thank you so much for calling, man. Appreciate it. Daryl in Alabama, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Daryl.
Hey, what's up, Stephen A. Man, I'm calling from Huntsville, Alabama. I'm a big fan of you, bro. I've been trying to get on for the longest, but I got two questions. Quick one. What do you think Draymond think about the statement Charles Barkley?
Well, he already said what he thinks. He said if Charles don't talk about it, anybody can talk on television in front of the microphone. If he feel that bad about it, tell him to come and punch me in my face like he said he wanted to. See what happens. That's basically what he said.
Right. Okay. My next question is, Stephen A. I heard a young lady previous to me. She said you are supposed to be. I know you're a big General Hospital fan. Me too. I've been watching for about 47 years myself. I want you're gonna be back on now. It seems like you know about the Luke Spencer Law and all that.
I know all of that. The Weather Machine, Frank Smith, the Cassadons. I know it all, bro. I know it all from General Hospital. And I'm going back on this summer. As soon as the NBA Finals are over, I'll be back on there. My man, I appreciate the call. Call back anytime. Giancarlo in L.A., you're live at Stephen A. What's going on?
What's up, Stephen A? How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I only got a minute. Go ahead.
All right. Quick question. I want to know what was up with the Pelicans yesterday. They were playing good ball in the first quarter, second quarter. Steph Curry comes in, and all of a sudden they start playing Golden State ball, trying to shoot the threes. They took like 4 or 5 threes in a row and let Golden State come back and tie them up. I honestly believe it was the coach's fault. It was the coach's fault.
No, it wasn't. Alvin Gentry's doing a hell of a job. It wasn't him. Here's what happened. Steph Curry comes off the bench. He hits his first shot. He scores more points than anybody else did in the first quarter. He finishes with 28 in 26 minutes. He's connected on 8 of 15 shots and 5 of 10 from 3-point range, while Kevin Durant is in the process of balling too. Quickly, New Orleans recognized 2s don't beat 3s. These brothers are making shots. Steph Curry is helping them spread the floor. There is simply nothing we can do but try to outscore them, and we ain't going to do that scoring layups because we can't stop them. That's what happened. That's why they ended up losing this game. But they played well, and I give them credit for that. I got to run. I got to get on out of here. But I'll be back in 22 hours. Y'all enjoy the day. The Houston Rockets are playing the Utah Jazz tonight. They will win. They will go up 2-0 in this series. They're going to win this series in 5. I'll holler at y'all in 22 hours. Until then, peace and love, everybody.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.